Hello everyone, Chrissy here at A Little Glam, A Lot of Mom. Thanks for joining me today. Today's an important video. I have chosen what I feel as their mother, nurturer, Christ-appointed mentor, and teacher to pass on this hard but true part of history onto my kids in a very slow and gentle approach. You don't know my children, their sensitivities, my family, our history, our story. So please, I ask kindly that you refrain from your opinions, comments, advice on our approach. Kindly, I don't care to hear it. My young ones are starting from zero. My teenagers, who most of you know I pulled out of the public school system just 3 years ago, are now relearning and rereading this part of history. Because I can speak on my own experiences as a public school student, many parts of this history are omitted or wrongly depicted. So my approach has been this. The last 2 years, we've been steadfast and will continue to learn, honor people, cultures, and history around the world, celebrating our differences to promote positive relationships, respect, kindness for others. We've had conversations of what freedom is and what slavery is. Now we're reading stories and learning history of enslaved and free persons' resistance to slavery. Last year, we read and gently introduced the progress of the emancipation, and you'll see those books here. My goal now, or focus now, is that there is no misunderstanding of enslaved people as happy in their captivity. Learning about those people of many races who worked together to abolish slavery. And where we are now, reading about the lives of enslaved people, their stories, lives, and cultures before captures, their contributions in this country, and moving forward to social justice. So in honor of Black History Month, I thought I'd put together a video to share our books that we have on our shelves on African American history, books on African American protagonists, and or written and illustrated by African American authors. Little Legends, Exceptional Men in Black History by Vashti Harrison. This beautifully illustrated and engagingly written history brings the true life stories of Black men in history. Among these biographies, readers will find aviators and artists, politicians and pop stars, athletes and activists. Reads The Legends and Little Legends, Exceptional Men in Black History span centuries and continents, but each one has blazed a trail for generations to come. So this is a reference type book, in my opinion. The information of each individual is concise. However, it does offer detailed information, a wonderful resource as a starting point to build upon for research or studies. And we also have Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History by Vashti Harrison. This reads, Little Leaders educates and inspires as it relates true stories of 40 trailblazing Black women in American history. Illuminating text paired with irresistible illustrations bring to life both iconic and lesser-known female figures of Black history, such as pilot Bessie Coleman, chemist Alice Baugh, politician Shirley Chisholm, mathematician Katherine Johnson. Among these biographies, readers will find heroes, role models, and everyday women who did extraordinary things, bold women whose actions and beliefs contributed to making the world for generations of girls and women to come. The leaders in this book may be little, but they all did something big and amazing, inspiring generations to come. And that is exactly what I love about these books, is that it goes beyond and introduces individuals who are less known or taught about in history. All right, that's what we have for reference type books. Now let's go on to picture books. This is A Weed is a Flower, The Life of George Washington Carver. Discover how George Washington Carver went from being an enslaved person to an innovator of agricultural science in this luminously illustrated picture book. Born an enslaved person, George Washington Carver went on to become the most prominent Black scientist of the early 20th century. Dr. Carver's life story is nothing short of inspiring, and I'm honored to read about him with and to my children. The illustrations in this book are stunning, by the way. I just found a hardcover copy on Thrift Books and ordered it because this book is that wonderful. In the Garden with Dr. Carver by Susan Grigsby. Sally is a young girl living in rural Alabama in the early 1900s, a time when people were struggling to grow food in soil that had been depleted by years of cotton production. One day, Dr. George Washington Carver shows up to help the grown-ups with their farms and the children with their school garden. He teaches them how to restore the soil and respect the balance of nature. He even prepares a delicious lunch made of plants, including chicken made from peanuts. And Sally never forgets the lessons the wise man leaves in her heart and mind. Susan Grigsby's warm stories shine new light on a Black scientist who was ahead of his time. I love everything about this book. I love that it shines light on Dr. Carver's work and history, tidbits of science, and appreciation of nature through gardening. May Among the Stars by Rhoda Ahmed. Inspired by the story of Mae Jemison, the first African-American woman in space. When little Mae was a child, she dreamed of dancing in space. She imagined herself surrounded by billions of stars, floating, gliding, and discovering. Follow Mae as she learns that if you can dream it and you work hard for it, anything is possible. My favorite part of this book is a repeated line that the kids and I love repeating together, and it's something her mom told her. If you believe it and work hard for it, anything is possible. An inspiring story for children about a historic woman who, despite all the odds against her, achieved her dreams. Counting on Catherine, How Katherine Johnson Saved Apollo 13 by Helene Becker. The bold story of Katherine Johnson, an African-American mathematician who worked for NASA during the space race and was depicted in the film Hidden Figures. From Katherine's early beginnings as a gifted student to her heroic accomplishments as a prominent mathematician at NASA, Counting on Catherine is a story of a groundbreaking American woman who not only calculated the course of moon landings, but in turn saved lives and made enormous contributions to history. We love this book not only because we're fascinated by the hidden figures, but also we love math books. Ron's Big Mission by authors Rose Blue and Corinne Naden. 9-year-old Ron loves going to the Lake City Public Library to look through all the books on airplanes and flight. Today, Ron is ready to take out books by himself, but in the segregated world of South Carolina in the 1950s, Ron's obtaining his own library card is not just a small rite of passage. It is a young man's first courageous mission. Here's an inspiring story based on Ron McNair's life of how a little boy, future scientist, and Challenger astronaut desegregated his library through peaceful resistance. This is a fantastic read for young children. It has an important message of justice and empowering to stand up for what is right. All right, the next set of books aren't on African American history, but they feature African American protagonists, and these are some of our favorites. First is Max and the Tag Along Moon by Floyd Cooper. Max loves his grandpa. When they must say goodbye after a visit, Grandpa promises Max that the moon at Grandpa's house is the same moon that will follow him all the way home. On that swervy, curvy car ride back to his house, Max watches as the moon tags along, but when the sky darkens and the moon disappears behind clouds, he worries that it didn't follow him home after all. Where did the moon go, and what about Grandpa's promise? I love how this book highlights and portrays an African American protagonist, both of them, Max and the grandfather, in a positive light, and that imagery is so important. The next is actually an entire series. This is Zoe and Sassafras by Asia Citro. It reads, Magical Animals, Science, Mystery, and Adventure, oh my. A series that's perfect for a wide range of ages. Each story in the Zoe and Sassafras series features a new magical animal with a problem that must be solved using science. There isn't a set formula for each book. Zoe sometimes needs to run experiments, while other times she needs to investigate a mystery, and yet other times she needs to do research. Zoe models how to keep a science journal through her handwritten entries in each story. Each story is complete with a glossary of the kid-friendly definitions for scientific terms used. I've shared about this series in previous videos, a gentle and magical series for children who love animals. The use of scientific language and methods is educational. The diversity in the main characters we love, and more the positive and supportive relationship between her and her parents. Again, that positive imagery. I Too Am America by Langston Hughes. The description reads, winner of the Coretta Scott King Illustrator Award, I Too Am America blends the poetic wisdom of Langston Hughes with visionary illustrations from Brian Collier in this inspirational picture book that carries the promise of equality. The retelling of Langston Hughes' poem in symphony with these illustrations make for such a powerful story poem that we all need on our shelves. All Different Now, Juneteenth, the First Day of Freedom by Angela Johnson. Through the eyes of one little girl, All Different Now tells the story of the first Juneteenth, the day freedom finally came to the last of the enslaved people in the South. The illustrator E.B. Lewis did an amazing job. This picture book is stunning. I also love that it includes notes from the author and illustrator, a timeline, and a glossary of relevant terms. Very helpful in reading and teaching to the kids. Again, this book is just for a gentle introduction and jumping off point onto the Emancipation Proclamation. The Other Side by Jacqueline Woodson. Clover's mom says it isn't safe to cross the fence that segregates their African American side of town from the white side where Anna lives, but the two girls strike up a friendship and get around the grown-ups' rules by sitting on top of the fence together. A beautiful book with a beautiful message. It's hard to pick one, but if there is one of all of these books mentioned today, this one is my favorite. An important message on racial awareness in children, and again, a gentle and starting point into the subjects of racism, segregation, and social injustice. Tar Beach by Faith Ringgold. Casey Louise Lightfoot has a dream to be free to go wherever she wants for the rest of her life. One night up on Tar Beach, the rooftop of her family's Harlem apartment building, her dreams come true. The stars lift her up and she flies over the city, claiming the buildings and the city as your own. Acclaimed African-American artist Faith Ringgold seamlessly weaves fiction, autobiography, and African-American history into a magical story that resonates with the universal wish for freedom and will be cherished for generations. This book is a gem. It's a masterpiece of art, really. Stunning and expressive illustrations of how families live with hope and joy despite oppression. Gently prompts discussions and topics on systemic oppression and racism. Next, I'm going to share what I have on our shelves for my teenagers. The genres in here are some young adult novels, fiction, historical fiction. These are all either written by African American authors or featuring African American protagonists. The Help, a novel by Catherine Stockett. And it reads, Abilene is a black maid in 1962 Jackson, Mississippi, raising her 17th white child. She's always taking orders quietly, but lately it leaves her with a bitterness she can no longer bite back. Her friend Minnie has certainly never held her tongue or held onto a job for very long, but now she's working for a newcomer with secrets that leave her speechless. And Skeeter has just returned from college with ambition and a degree, but to her mother's lament, no husband. Normally, Skeeter would find solace in Constantine, the beloved maid who raised her, but Constantine has inexplicably disappeared. Together, these seemingly different women join to work on a project that could forever alter their destinies and the life of a small town. I just finished reading this, and this is one of those powerful books that leaves an imprint in your life. And apparently, it's also made Ailani's top 3 novels. The Secret Life of Bees, a novel by Sue Monk Kidd. Set in South Carolina in 1964, The Secret Life of Bees tells the story of Lily Owens, whose life has been shaped around the blurred memory of the afternoon her mother was killed. When Lily's fierce-hearted black stand-in mother, Rosaline, insults 3 of the deepest racists in town, Lily decides to spring them both free. They escape to Tiburon, South Carolina, a town that holds the secret to her mother's past. Taken in by an eccentric trio of black-keeping sisters, Lily is introduced to their mesmerizing world of bees and honey and the Black Madonna. This is a remarkable novel about divine female power, a story that women will share and pass on to their daughters for years to come. I'm reading this now and then passing it on to my daughter, and I love it. Just Mercy, a true story of the fight for justice by Brian Stevenson. I am persuaded that the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. I've come to believe that the true measure of our commitment to justice, fairness, and equality cannot be measured by how we treat the rich, the respected, and the privileged among us. The true measure of our character is how we treat the poor, the disfavored, the accused, the incarcerated, and the condemned. The closer we get to the mass incarceration and extreme levels of punishment, the more I believe it's necessary to recognize that we all need mercy, we all need justice, and perhaps we all need some measure of unmerited grace. This is the adapted for young adults. I read the original version. Actually, I heard it on Audible, and oh my gosh, such a powerful read. Everyone needs to read this, young adults and adults. The Boy in the Black Suit by Jason Reynolds. Sometimes when you try to be smooth, you really end up blowing it. Even Matt's best friend wants to know what's up with the black suit. Matt's been wearing it every day since his mom passed away. But that's not why he's wearing it. He's just got a gig at the local funeral home. Hey, don't judge. It pays a hell of a lot more than the cluck bucket. $30 a day, not bad. But everything else basically sucks. Folks say you don't miss something until you don't have it no more, and that's real. But then Matt meets Lovey. Yeah, crazy name, and she's been through more crazy than he could ever imagine, but this girl won't cry, even though she should, and maybe that's why Matt is so drawn to her, why he can't seem to shake her, because she's tough the way he wants to be. This is a young adult novel in where the author speaks to readers about life, love, and circumstances of teens, overall an uplifting message for young adults about rising up no matter what life has to throw at you. Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson. I'd picked this up for my teen because of the bold character and the protagonist Jade. Ilani says she's confident in her identity and what she wants. She's not ashamed of her passions, which is one is being art and the other is traveling. It's a big part of her story. She's strong and passionate, compelling, combined with the political themes of race, the politics of privilege or lack of, and socioeconomics. It reads, acclaimed author Renee Watson offers a powerful story about a girl striving for success in a world that too often seems like it's trying to break her. And by the same author, Renee Watson, Watch Us Rise. Jasmine and Chelsea are best friends. This year at their NYC high school, they plan to rock the theater and poetry clubs. Until Chelsea realizes the poetry club is more interested in the classics than poems that matter, and Jasmine has an experience that is more drama than theater. Sick over their way, even their progressive school fails to listen to their voices, they start a new club, one dedicated to writing and creating work that supports women's ideas. Overall, it seems like a book or a story of girls who rise up and claim their power and their purpose on the world, and I want my girl all in that. And 2 more biographies. Amel's Fortune, Free Man by Elizabeth Yates. It does a man no good to be free until he learns how to live. These were the words of Amel's Fortune, born the son of a king in the tribe in Africa. When Amos was only 15 years old, he was captured by slave traders and brought to Massachusetts, where he was sold at auction. Although his freedom had been taken, Amos never lost his dignity and courage. He dreamed of being free and of buying the freedom of his closest friends. By the time he was 60 years old, Amos Fortune began to see those dreams come true. A powerful biography. Ilani loved it. I have not read it yet. Next, it's going on to my teen son, and then it'll circle back to me. The 3 of us rotate books, depending on the publisher or the overall theme of the book, the genre. I will oftentimes read it first and then pass it along. But if it's one that I've read the reviews and I deemed clean for them, they can go ahead and read it first. One of the many reasons I'm so grateful for the Good and the Beautiful's library list resource and their own publishings of books. This is one of them, Harriet, the Moses of Her People by Sarah Bradford. Harriet, the Moses of Her People is an inspiring true story of Harriet Tubman and her tremendous impact for good during a time of much oppression and hardship. A woman of deep faith, courage, and love, Harriet prayed with complete trust that the Lord would hear and answer her prayers. She was fearless, for she knew God was at the helm and would guide her steps. All right, my friends, that's it for today's video. And as we continue to read together and we'll continue to learn together, and just as our bookshelves on Black American history continue to grow, so will we. Honor, kindness, empathy, reinforcing humanity and growth. I will instill this in my household, my children, and that's how I will make a difference in the world from just my little corner, because it starts in our home.